Don't get worked up about the number of unsubscribes. I would rather have an email list of, say, 1,000 subscribers I'm emailing daily, as opposed to a list of 10,000 that you never email. Most people treat their email list like a booty call. Don't do that. Be the good guy that's constantly kind of checking in with them and giving them entertaining stuff. It doesn't mean that you're teaching too much in those emails, but you want to reward them for the time that they spend reading it, even if it's only a minute or so.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm your host, Samantha Riley, and today we're talking about platform building. And I'm not talking about going viral and doing crazy dances on TikTok. When I'm talking about platform, I'm talking about the ecosystem that you can build that lets your voice carry. It's the daily emails that helps fill your programs. It's the podcast that earns trust on autopilot. It's a community that shows up because of how you show up. A platform is really what turns your work into influence, and it gives your ideas roots and reach. And there's no better person to unpack this with than Mark Mawhinney. He has hosted over 900 podcast episodes on his show, Natural Born Coaches. He has a Facebook group that currently has over 27,500 coaches. I just checked. And he's been sending a daily email to his list since 2016. So his proof that consistency builds credibility. So Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited about this topic. I'm very big about building platforms because it really does give our voice so much more reach. And that's obviously influence building. Did you always know the value of building a platform, or was there a specific moment that made you realize that this was the key to building your long-term influence?
So I've been in the online space in the coaching world. It's been since March 2014, so just past the 11-year mark not too long ago. And I'm the typical entrepreneur that jumps off the cliff and builds a plane on the way down before I splat onto the ground. So I'd like to say that it's all figured out, but it's been a lot of trial and error and kind of building things as I go. I do think fairly early on, I realized that, hey, it's very important to have control of certain things. And I know we'll probably talk about emails and so on. I've been emailing my list daily since 2016. And I'm really big on that because you can control that email list. You're not going to wake up and Mark Zuckerberg kicked you off, whether it's Facebook, social media platform dies, which has happened, or loses popularity. So I'm very big on email, but everything I do is also, it's an ecosystem. So there's podcasting, my show, going out on shows like this. There's community building, the Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle, and then email marketing, and they all kind of feed into each other.
What made you, or what prompted you to choose those platforms? And you've built a really solid podcast, that really great Facebook group, and daily emails. Why those three?
Well, I've experimented with things, and I'm not saying I don't do other stuff. I'm on LinkedIn, I post, daily on there, and I do some other stuff, but 90% is with those, what I call pillars, those big three. And I'm very big on two criteria if you're choosing something to spend your time and energy on. First of all, you have to enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it consistently. So, for example, if the thought of writing an email and sending emails out to your list makes you want to vomit, then maybe email marketing is not the best thing. Although there are some workarounds, and I can talk about that. You have to enjoy what you're doing. And then secondly, it has to work. The example I always give is my favorite thing in the world to do could be yelling out my window at people walking by, like, hire me, hire me. And even if that's what gives me butterflies in my stomach and I'm popping out of bed every morning excited to do that, that's probably not somewhere I should be. It's something I should be doing. I'll be put in the loony bin. So you have to enjoy it and also give results. So if you're not getting results from something, either stop doing it or find out what you have to change to get it working to give you results, but don't bang your head against the wall for years if you're not getting anything from it.
On that, just before we started recording, you were talking about your email list, because that was something you were about to give away. Yep. So we're talking back in 2016. Can you share a little bit about why you were thinking about giving it away and what changed for you?
So from 2014 till April 2016, I did email like a lot of people do. It was sporadic, not regular, could be once a week, could be every 2 weeks. There was no regular rhythm there, and they were boring. I'd always say if someone had trouble sleeping, that's a perfect solution. You don't have to take melatonin or anything. You could read my emails. They were designed not to offend. And to make a really long story short, I had a guest on my podcast who's big on daily emails, and I was griping to him after our interview, like, I'm gonna kill off my email service provider because I'm just gonna focus on what's working and just not get anything from email. And he challenged me. He said, Mark, why don't you give a month of daily emails, and if it doesn't work, then you can kill it off. And I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. So I committed to doing a month of daily emails. No pressure on myself. I didn't say, oh, I have to make $1 million or I'm not going to keep doing it. I would like to say I made 1 million in that first month. I didn't. But what I started to notice is I began to get replies from the emails, which didn't happen before. That was the other key component besides daily, same time every day. I took the filter off and I just had more fun writing the emails. And I said, if I lose subscribers, fine, that's okay. So I started to get replies from it, and some results. Some sales started to trickle in, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. That was April 12th of 2016, and we're, I think, 3,300 days later. Knock on wood, I haven't missed a day. So I'm a huge daily email fan.
So many people that I speak to when we talk about emails say, oh, I'm scared to burn my list, or I'm scared that people are going to unsubscribe. And you did just talk about unsubscribes there a little bit. But what mental shift did you need to make to do those daily emails? And I guess, secondly, what can you speak to about burning the list? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. And I guarantee you, any objections that people watching this or listening to this have, I had them as well at every single one.
Yeah. Because we're all
So
human, right?
that's right. I was like, oh my God, am I gonna get, death threats or people, really upset? Couple things. I turned off my email service provider, and a lot of them have a setting that will, if you don't change it, it'll notify you every time somebody unsubscribes. Joe Smith is unsubscribed from your list, and then there's a box where Joe Smith can put why, and he could say anything, you're a piece of garbage, blah, 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 or whatever. My recommendation is turn that off because it's going to get into your head if you start getting these. If I see Samantha Riley has unsubscribed from my list, I'm like, geez, was that the email that I sent today? Or it was the one that I sent yesterday where I insulted Australians? No, I did just shook my head and insulted. But it's going to get into my head trying to guess. Like, you just turn it off. If someone leaves,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe they hit unsubscribe by mistake. Maybe they're just cleaning their inbox. I've had people who've told me they've unsubscribed and resubscribed several times over the years. And I don't get too worked up. So turn that setting off with it. It's a little bit like, have you seen Indiana Jones, those movies?
Yeah, yeah.
Where they yeah, yeah. So the third Indiana Jones movie where Sean Connery was his father, I think it was The Last Crusade. There's a scene where he has to walk across there's one side of the mountain, he has to get to the other side, and there's a huge, huge drop off, but he has a journal which shows like a bridge going across. And
Yes.
so
Yep.
yeah, you remember that one where it's like an
Yep. Yep.
invisible brick just takes that first step and it's just an optical illusion. It looks like there's nothing there. That's how I view it with daily emails. You have to do that. You just throw caution to the wind and you step out over that expanse of air and hope you don't fall to the ground. It's not the end of the world. If someone unsubscribes from your list, who cares? So sometimes I'll speak with a client and they'll sheepishly tell me, Mark, I haven't emailed my list in 6 months or a year. I'm really afraid to email them because I've been MIA. What do I do? And I've seen some of their first emails to re-engage their list, and it sounds like they killed the subscriber's family dog or cheated on their spouse with them, something. It's like way too much. Like, you haven't heard from me. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. Blah blah blah. You can make a joke like, "Hey, I know I've been a ghost or MIA for a while. Life's been crazy, but you're going to hear from me more often." Something like that. You can reference it, but don't trip over yourself to apologize. It's really not the end of the world. I will say, when you start doing daily emails, if you haven't done them before, you will see a higher number of unsubscribes in the early days, but then it'll settle down. So if someone hasn't heard from you in months or very rarely, and all of a sudden they start seeing Samantha Riley in their inbox every day, they may not even remember they subscribed to your list. So, Jesus, what's going on here? Don't get worked up about the number of unsubscribes. I would rather have an email list of, say, 1,000 subscribers I'm emailing daily as opposed to a list of 10,000 that you never email.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And Ben Peddle's the guy that got me into daily emails. He said something once. He said, most people treat their email list like a booty call, just like the guy that's texting the girl at Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Hey, are you up or whatever? They only reach out to their list when they need to sale in that time. And he said, don't do that. Be the good guy or girl that's constantly kind of checking in with them and giving them entertaining stuff. It doesn't mean that you're teaching too much in those emails, but you want to reward them for the time that they spend reading it, even if it's only a minute or so. And then I make a call to action, next step in every single email. I'm into nurturing, but not just some people like, you got to nurture for 50 straight days. Then you can make an offer. I'm like, no, I think I nurture in my emails, but there's always a call to action, a link, a next step for them to take.
Mm. And I love that because my husband and I were just chatting this morning. We're, just while we were getting ready and having breakfast, and we were actually talking about call to actions, and we were saying that so many people are afraid to do that. But we were looking at it from the perspective of we've got money in our hand and we want to buy something. There is nothing more frustrating than someone making you jump through ridiculous amounts of hoops to actually make that purchase. And we were chatting about my brother who had saved up all his money to buy this big rooftop tent so that he would go traveling around Australia. We went with him to one of the shows where he could buy this at a special discount. He had the money there. He was so excited. We walked in and they were super weird. And, they said, you can't buy it for all this amount of time. And they put all of this friction in place. And he just walked away and went, I was ready to buy that today. And he said, they've annoyed me so much, I'm never going to speak to them again. And he ended up buying it from someone else. And I see a lot of coaches doing this, putting so much friction in their sales cycle where sometimes someone just goes, oh, that's exactly what I needed to see today. Click that link and just buy because it's the right time. And I think that so many people are afraid to do that.
Yeah, 2 days ago, I reopened a laser coaching offer, and I've done it over the years at different times. I retired it last year because my plate was too full. I had 15 laser clients, but I brought it back now. I just started talking about it 2 days ago, and it goes just to a sales page, no sales call, gives the details. Here's what it is. And I've already had a couple people come on board. They weren't asking me for calls or whatever. The price was right. They jumped in. I've got my first call tomorrow, coaching call with one of them. So the example I would use is if you had a splitting headache and you went into your pharmacy and you're looking for that medication that will alleviate your pain, your head feels like it's going to pop off your neck. And if the pharmacist said, well, I'm not going to give you the medication, but here's a fancy brochure talking about the history of migraines and there's some other fun facts.
Mm-hmm.
Take this home and good luck, you'd be pretty annoyed with it. And I do see bad advice. I mentioned the 50 days of nurturing for a reason because there was a guru I know of, and he said that you do not sell for the first 50 days that a person comes on your email list. It's just pure value, value, value. Well, they're on your list because they need help with something. They're
Yeah.
not just joining fun. And I'm not saying that it's like a blatant just sales pitch, nothing else. I've been on some lists that are a lot like fast food. There's no nutrients. When I look at them, I'm like, they're not telling any story. They're not giving any aha, golden nuggets or whatever. And there's no nutrient, no value there. For mine, the way I approach it is I want to give them something that rewards them for the time they spend reading the emails because everybody is important. And it could be a story, an aha, maybe it's a quote, something I read in a book, and then I expand on it with a few thoughts. And then I go to a simple call to action. Oh, by the way, I go over this in greater detail in module 4 of my ABC program. Here's a link to check it out. It's not all this caps locks and exclamation points and the internet marketing group speak. Like that's just not me. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of nowadays they have their backup. They're much more sensitive to that and cynical probably. Mine's just like you're talking to someone normal. Here's what I want to tell you. And oh, if you want to check out this, here's what I'm doing. Bang.
Yeah, I love it. What do you do to grow that list to make sure that you've always got fresh people coming in? Because it's one thing to do a daily email, but if you're not bringing people into the list, it's not going to go very far.
Well, I hinted at this earlier with the ecosystem that I have. So my Facebook group is a big growth engine for my email list because when someone joins the coaching jungle, they're at a request to join, they're asked several questions. One of them is, would you like free daily email advice for growing your coaching business from Mark Mooney? If so, input your best email. You want to say that because you don't want them to give you the Gmail that's their 10th email address that they never check. It's like the forgotten email. Give your best email. So that's where a lot of our subscribers come from, is from the Facebook group. And then also, by the way, the email list grows a Facebook group, because if people come onto
Mm-hmm.
the elsewhere, the PS in their first email they get from the autoresponder with the free resource that I offer says, oh, by the way, I've got a Facebook group with over 27,000 coaches in it called the Coaching Jungle. We'd love to have you there. Here's the link. So they're helping each other. Besides the Facebook group, podcast interviews are huge. If I'm ever doing an interview like this, when I know usually when it's released, because the day that a podcast interview is released, we get even more requests to join the group. So I always I say sneak in there, .coachingjungle.com if you want to check it out. But that's where I notice an uptick for the Facebook group, which also helps the email list when I'm on podcast interviews as well. And there actually is a really quick tip. I know it's not emails, but Facebook groups. If you can, buy the URL for your Facebook group instead of saying, hey, go check out facebook.com/group/14967, blah, blah, blah. If Facebook gives you very ugly URLs for it, if you spend $10 on GoDaddy or wherever, set up a forwarding link like I did at thecoachingjungle.com, it goes over to the group. Or you don't want to say go search for the group, and then they may
Mm.
not be Facebook. But that's a Facebook groups tip, but I think it's important.
Absolutely. And I'm loving this because it is about the ecosystem. I think a lot of people get confused where they try this like one tactic and then don't understand why it doesn't work. But what's really important to note here is that you've got these platforms, but they feed into each other. So if someone, comes in on your Facebook group, then they're coming over to listen to your podcast. They're signing up to your email. And the ecosystem is exactly how it works. So let's talk about your podcast, because you've been, God, it's 900 and something episodes. Congratulations for that, because I know what it takes.
It's 9/18 as of today. So yeah, full disclosure, it was the daily show for the first year. It launched in November of
Ah.
2014. So it grew to the first 350, 360 really quickly. It's been a weekly frequency for a while, but if there's anyone that's really bored and working out the math and say, wait a minute, how's he at 918 episodes if it was a weekly show since 2014? No, it was a daily show for the first year. It went daily, went to 5 days a week, 3 days a week, and it settled at weekly for many years. But yeah, that's the history.
So, how has your podcast played into this ecosystem?
The podcast is interesting. Well, this is my whole business. There's two halves to it. First off, it's ever since I've started, I've been helping coaches get more clients, and that's been a big part of it. But then also the other part of my business is joint venture partnerships, or I also have a Coaching Jungle VIP perk in the Facebook group, which you're one of our VIPs, so thank you. And so there's two halves there. The podcast gets clients or prospects on the first half that want to reach out and work with me, because I've got ads in many of the shows for my stuff, or I'm talking about it. But also with joint ventures and things I do, I invite my guests onto the show. I'm not charging them to be on the show, but I charge for my joint venture partnerships, which includes an interview on the show. So I'm also getting the partnership revenue that way as well. I find too many podcasters, the holy grail is trying to find this magical sponsor that's going to pay them gobs of money, and that's all they're looking for. That can be very difficult. I mean, if you're Joe Rogan or you're a big name, okay, that's fine. I always tell especially new podcasters, but I'm still doing this after over 10 years of my show, is you can sponsor your own show and with your own,
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to do that as opposed to, there's some sponsors that pay peanuts, like, not to bash them, because I've been an Audible subscriber for years. I love my Audible. I listen to audiobooks often, but a lot of hosts use the Audible affiliate type thing, which doesn't pay a whole lot. Same goes with Amazon and other stuff. I would recommend you put your own things in there, so you're sponsoring your own show.
Totally. I was, as you were sort of going into this, I was going to drop that in. So I love that we're both on the same page there, because you're going to get way more money income from someone purchasing from you than you are going to from a sponsor, because you just it's so difficult to get the number of downloads that a sponsor will want. And to get that number of downloads, your show needs to be very generic, and we are far better off, I believe, in this world to be more niched and get the exact right person. So I just had Dave Jackson on recently who was talking about exactly this. Like, don't worry about downloads. Like, what's the actual outcome? If it's sales, then it's a completely different process to doing that.
It can be a pain. I've had people, and I've done mid-roll ads and stuff like that, but I've had people who are used to radio, advertising on radio, reach out to me about podcasting stuff. They've sent me spreadsheets I do not understand. It's all Greek to me, like the acronyms and everything. I'm like, geez, I'm not like some radio station here. But I know some podcasters have good sized shows and they've taken on those types of advertisers and they are a total pain in the behind. They are look at number of clicks and they're just like wanting additional promo and all that, and they're not paying a lot for really what's being done. The other issue on the flip side, and I'll emphasize, I can see where advertisers are coming from. They want to get bang for their buck. Years ago, this used to happen a lot where podcasters would game the system. So what they would do on Twitter, now X, is they would find a popular hashtag. And let's say when Justin Bieber was a big thing, they would say hashtag, they would put their show out there, the episode, and then they say hashtag believers or whatever the hot trending hashtag was. And they get all these 13-year-old girls clicking on thinking it was something to do with Justin Bieber. Realize within 5 seconds it's some middle-aged person's podcast, and they would click off, but it would count as a download. So these podcast hosts would go to potential advertisers and say, yeah, we're getting 1 million downloads a month or whatever. When it wasn't that, they would come in and say, wait a minute, we've got 1 million downloads and we only have 5 clicks on whatever page. What the heck's going on? So there's blame on both sides there, but I don't have the patience. I have taken on, as I said, mid-roll ones, but some of the advertisers come into me. It's just, I'm like, no, I'd rather promote my own stuff.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that one. All right. So you've got daily email, you've got really popular podcast, Facebook group. What does a typical week for you look like in the workflow of this content to get the visibility? What's systemized and what's just off the cuff, with how you're feeling at the time?
So I'm big on batching. I'm sure you are as well. So anyone who doesn't know batching, you basically take a period of time, a block of time, and you dedicate it to just one activity. So for example, with the daily emails, I don't sit down at my computer every morning with a blank screen and say, okay, what am I going to write today? Because that would be a lot of pressure and I would probably miss some days. I'll take a block of couple hours and I'll write a week's worth of emails, and they're scheduled in there. And usually I like to have at least a couple weeks of emails. A month is awesome, but I'm not always 30 days ahead. And if something happens that there's something topical that's popped up that I want to talk about tomorrow, I can unschedule tomorrow's email, push it back a bit, and then move, like, let's say World War III started. I want to talk about World War III or zombie apocalypse. I'm like, okay, I'll talk about this hot topic. A lot of my stuff is evergreen or evergreen-ish, so I don't have to do that. So batching is really big. I recommend, for example, Fridays, I don't usually book calls. That's usually a content creation day. Mondays is right now is my client fulfillment days where I run my coaching calls and my mastermind, because I have a mastermind. They're on Mondays. I don't usually book calls in the mornings or the evenings. Although this is evening because you're in Australia, I'm in Canada, so afternoon would be crazy time for you. Usually I keep my calls at the moment restricted to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons. And then, like I said, Friday is content creation day. I don't book calls on the weekends. It doesn't mean I'm not working the weekends. Full disclosure, I'm a workaholic. I'm working on that, ironically, because
I
I
know
can
that
hear
because I send you messages at all times of the evening and you get back to me. I'm like, whoa.
guilty as charged. Yeah, I have to do better at it. The problem with me is I can very easily justify working 24 hours a day. So that's not, don't talk to me if your goal is a 4-hour work week. But that being said, you could do certain things. In the process, I just hired someone who's going to be helping me automate even more stuff because you can always do more automation. She's has a really good system with AI to in a business to implement. I've used AI, but I'm kind of in the middle. There's some people that are the AI fanboys and fangirls. They love it. They think it's going to be everything. And then there's the ones that hate it, refuse to use it. I'm in the middle, but I could do more with AI and automation for my business as well. But yeah, that's the way it is. My business has a couple main hats I'm wearing. One is the content creation because you have to get your message out there, obviously. Another one's
Mhm.
a fulfillment, actually do your coaching calls and fulfill on what people have hired you for. And then the other one's calls, which could be potential clients or podcasts for my show or like we're doing here now.
Yeah, totally. So if someone's starting from scratch, they're listening to this, they don't really have a big audience. I honestly believe everyone has an audience. But if they don't have a big audience, if they don't have an email list or they do have a small email list and they're not doing anything with it, where would you tell them to start and what should they ignore?
I think the lowest hanging fruit is podcast interviews. Now, it can be a little trickier to get booked now, as you're probably seeing versus years ago. I'm now getting 10 times the pitches that I used to get on my show.
Mm-hmm.
But podcast interviews, I have a friend, Aaron Walker, View from the Top. He has his own show now, but for the first couple of years, he was going on 200, 250 shows a year. He was doing podcast guesting on steroids, and he did so much business from it. And then he got his own show, and he still goes out on shows. I don't want to say don't start a podcast, but a podcast, can be a lot of work, and it's not
Yeah.
instant. People think, oh, start a podcast, it'll be like a magic money tree in the backyard. No, I say start with guesting on shows and then you can launch your own show if you want. But as said, that's your lowest hanging fruit. The way that I would approach it if you're newer and you haven't been around for a long time is I would stress a certain amount of promotion you're going to do for it. So you've probably found this out, Samantha, too. Sometimes you have a bigger guest in your show and they don't promote the episode or not much. But then I have
100%.
yeah, they're busy, they got a lot going on or whatever. That's fine. But then I have someone on my show who isn't as big. They have a little bit lower profile, but like every day I'm seeing myself tagged in. They're just sharing it all around. At the end of the day, if I'm looking at it from strictly selfish podcast host point of view, what do they say? Everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
probably go, yeah, I'm going to go with Joe Smith or Mary Jones, who's a little smaller, but they're constantly promoting it. That it stands out for me and it doesn't happen often, but when I have someone on Natural Born Coaches and they don't share it, I'm not expecting them to share it every day, but it takes 20 seconds to click a button and share it around a few places on social media. If they don't do that, I make a mental note they're not coming back on the show because I'm offering them a platform and they're being exposed to my audience and all this stuff. If they can't bother to at least do a quick share on social media, then we won't do another interview. So if I was newer, that's what I would, you could actually put the objection right out there. Hey, look, I know that I'm a little bit newer. However, this is what I will do, for you. I'll sing the praises of this podcast from the mountaintops, and you'll get a lot more exposure that way. So that's one idea. You also want to give everything to them on a silver platter. So I would get a podcast one sheet done. It's the same as a speaker sheet for a professional speaker. I will, if you want to include on the show notes page, I have a media page for my business and I send everyone there when I'm pitching myself to be on shows. And it includes everything a host would need. And it also makes it much more likely for you to get booked. So it includes a link to download the one sheet right from that page. It's got your profile picture. It's got a list of all of your recent interviews to show that you've been going on to podcasts, not your first rodeo. I would start a page like that, even if you haven't been on any shows. If you've been on one show, you start your list with that on your media page, and then you go from there, as opposed to just sending a message or an email to someone like, hey, I'd like
Mm,
to be in. This is it. There's so many people who I could just, my spidey sense are tingling. I can tell they want to come on my show because they have a new program, a new book out, and they're just looking to sell it. And it's
yeah.
funny because sometimes I can tell it's copied and pasted. They'll say, hi, Mike. I'm like,
Yeah,
Mike.
that's Or hi,
I
first
love,
name.
I love your show. I recently I see that you had, and then you can tell the Samantha Riley's a different font. I saw your episode with Samantha Riley, and then it's a copied and pasted stuff. And that's probably not going to work as much. If you're going to, I'm not saying you listen to a whole catalog of shows, you don't have enough time, but if you listen to one or two episodes of a show that you really want to be on, it could be something like, hey, Samantha, I just wanted to tell you I've been enjoying your show. I listened into your interview with these are all made up people. Trevor Smith, where he's talking about time management for entrepreneurs. I thought it was really cool where he talked about the Pomodori technique there. I'm going to give that a try. Oh, by the way, and then bang, you say what you could speak on. You'll have more luck that way as opposed to the copied and pasted stuff.
Totally. Can I just add a small bit here? Because I've been banging on about this a little bit. Just help the host by giving them an idea of what it is that you speak about or some links to shows that you've already been on so that show hosts are busy, right, Mark? We know show hosts are busy. And I had someone reach out and say, oh, I'd like to come on your show and speak about entrepreneurship. And I just looked and went,
Wow.
that gives me nothing. So I just sent, I don't normally send back. Normally I'll just like delete them because we get 10, 15 a day, right? But this one I just sent back, look, we've covered this already on my show. I don't, blah, blah, blah. And she sent me back the rudest email. Well, you could have looked on my website and seen exactly what I speak on. I'm like, why do I want to do that work? Like, that's not for me to do. That's for you to tell me. So I think
Yeah.
like, just, show a little bit of respect. If you want to be on someone's show, make it a
Yes.
little bit easier for the host.
Yeah, a few ideas there. You make a really good point is you need a good hook. Like this isn't 2015 when you can get away with, hey, I'd like to, talk about how people could be happier or motivation or very general personal development stuff. It's just not going to cut it. I just recorded, it's coming out next week. Someone on my show, any of the best hook was Guns N' Roses big in Australia. They're big in the whole world, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so Craig Duswalt, I have his book because I just interviewed him, and his book is called "Welcome to My Jungle" instead of "Welcome to the Jungle." Like
Yep,
it was kind of interesting. Where in my Facebook group's a coaching jungle, he was Axl Rose's right hand man during what the at the peak of their popularity. To use your
cool.
1991 to 1994. I'm like, I got even though my show is book solid, I'm like, I got to get him on the show, and it was out of 900 and some episodes, no exaggeration, probably, if not my favorite, it's definitely in the top 3 to 5 episodes out of
Yep.
all those. Just incredible, him telling stories backstage and all that. And I don't want to make it sound like you have to be on tour with the biggest band in the world to get booked on podcasts, but you probably have something that's really interesting in there that you can use as a hook. The other thing that I would mention is what I do with requests to come on my show is I send them, I have a templated response, but I would say, hey, Joe, thanks for reaching out. However, my podcast is booked solid. I do have guaranteed spots for my joint venture partners. And then I would give them a couple links like, hey, check out my Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. We've got lots of hosts in there. And then I would give them the JV link as well. And I've gotten some JV partners that way. So I don't charge to be on my show. I'm not a big fan of that to say, hey, pay X amount to come on my show. But if they get a JV package with me, part of one of the perks in there is a guaranteed spot on my podcast and they get kind of moved ahead of the line and get moved up there. So I would just suggest for yours, instead of it's tempting to trash them all because you get so many of them, but there's probably a way you can monetize some of those. Not everyone. I don't know, it might be 5% of the pitches or less that come on board and actually become a Coaching Jungle VIP or a JV partner, but some of them
Mm,
have.
great tip. Mark, I've loved this. There's so much gold in this episode. For people that have listened and they want to stay connected with you or in your world, how can they do that?
Well, I mentioned the coachingjungle.com as a Facebook group. Naturalborncoaches.com is the central hub. You'll find all my stuff there. We have a Coaching Jungle VIP perk, and I think you're going to put the link on the show notes page. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Full disclosure, it's an affiliate link. It's not enough for Samantha to retire on, but she can buy a cottage or a sports car with it now. But you are a Country Jungle VIP, so I like to support my VIPs, and it's not going to change the price for anyone. It's the exact same price if they come in. And yeah, I mean, those are the main things. But I'm all about if it's coaches, or I should mention for the coaching jungle, it's also maybe it's aspiring coaches or people who are thinking of getting into it. It's not like you have to be a coach today. We've got some people who are just interested in coaching and they join, and we don't discriminate against them either.
Love that so much. And yes, I love being part of your world. You're really good at bringing people together. And as someone that loves connection and like, yeah, just hanging out with cool people, it's a very great place to do that. So, Mark, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciated it.
Thank you for having me.